Hello and welcome to a brand new series of Snooker Vodcast with me, Andy Goldstein. In today's episode, I'll be speaking to arguably the game's greatest ever player about his main rivals throughout his career. So without any further ado, let's say hello to the Rocket, Ronnie O'Sullivan. Ronnie, hello, how are you? Good to see you.
Yeah, I'm good, Andrew, all right?
I'm good, very well. You look very relaxed there in lockdown mode at the moment.
Yeah, we're just sort of tidying the house up, really, since Layla come back. She started from the top and just cleaning the whole house up, so it's just been mental, really. And I've just been laying on the sofa for about 3 weeks.
You look like you haven't moved for about 3 weeks.
I ain't, mate.
Are you missing snooker? Are you missing playing at all?
Nah, not one bit, mate.
No?
Oh, fantastic.
Okay. How rusty will you be when you eventually... What's the longest you've gone without ever playing a shot?
9 months.
What, you didn't hit one ball in 9 months?
No, didn't hit one ball.
And how did that affect you?
6 weeks, 7 weeks practice when I won the Worlds, mate.
Yeah, but you were playing exhibitions throughout those 9 months, weren't you?
Didn't do a thing.
You weren't? Oh, wow,
didn't pick
okay.
up.
Do you think other players might suffer from having this longer break out the game?
Nah, they'll be all right. They're playing so much, I think they could do with a break, to be honest with you.
Listen, in this episode, we're talking about your rivals, and I want to start off by talking about players that went on to become your rivals, but players that as a kid growing up, I'm guessing you were watching and maybe taking notes from. So what's your earliest recollection of watching snooker and looking at the likes of Steve Davis and Jimmy White and thinking, that's who I want to be like?
Yeah, I suppose growing up, I used to look at them and think, they were like the best players around. You watch Steve Davis, he was just like a robot. Never thought he was going to make a mistake. Jimmy White, most exciting player you'd ever see, and you just thought, just play every shot in the book.
Am I right in saying that as a kid, when you were sort of, learning the game, you used to record Steve Davis and watch him back on the video?
Yeah, on Betamax and VHS. We didn't have no Sky Planner there, so it was all done by manual. Yeah. Listen, I used to get a lot of my snooker off of CFAX if I couldn't watch it on the TV. Be watching the scores and that, and in brackets, if there was any breaks over 40, you could see that the frame was run with a 40 or whatever it was. And then obviously your highlights and what you could watch on TV. Yeah, but I'd always watch Davis because he was the only person that he was the guy that I wanted to learn from, So I tried to watch as many matches of the nugget as I could.
What was it about? Because I see your game in Jimmy's, I see, obviously your game in Higgins. I don't know if I necessarily see anything from the stance to just, the composure that Davis had. So what is it about Davis's game you think you've taken into yours then? What is it you saw as a kid you thought, I want to be like that?
Well, up until I was about 14, I followed Davis, So if you look at a video of me when I played the Cockney Classic when I was 14, you'll see I was much more like a Davis or a Hendry. The technique was just perfect. And then obviously I started practicing with players like Ken Doherty and other players that were good amateurs, and they were the first type of players that I've seen in the flesh, if you like. So I started copying them, and so I kind of went backwards in a way because I created a lot of faults in my game, which is in hindsight was the worst thing I'd ever done. But at the time, it's you tried different things, but once you change something, it's very hard to go back to what you was before. So in some respects, that's probably the biggest regret I've ever got in snooker, that I never stuck with the technique that I had when I was 14.
And can you remember the first time you saw Jimmy? Can you remember, who he was playing, or did you go and see him live? Was it on the telly?
I see him playing an exhibition in Walthamstow, and it was him and Tony Meo doing an exhibition. And I just remember seeing Jimmy there, and he was like a god, a snooker god,
Yeah, and do you think from that moment you then maybe fine tune your game to play the more flair shots, the more exhibition shots then?
Yeah, there was a period when I was growing up where I wanted to play like Jimmy, so I'd spin the cue around and I'd do all that sort of stuff. But then my dad sat me down, and he was quite forward thinking in that way, and he went, look, I know you want to be like Jimmy White, and that's great, he's a fantastic player. He said, but if you really want to start being the greatest player of all time and winning world championships, who's the guy who's winning the tournaments? And I was like, oh, right, Steve Davis. He went, well, there, he's your role model. He's the guy you should be copying, So So a lot of that of where I am today is probably down to my dad, because he kept me on the right tracks, really.
And what about when Stephen Hendry first came on the scene? What did you make of him?
I see Stephen Hendry play when he was 15 in Hastings, and he was. I remember hearing about this kid who played, who was meant to be unbelievable, and he was playing in a club. He was in a club playing a guy called Paul Tanner, and Paul Tanner was a very good player. He won a lot of pro-ams. And I thought that Paul Tanner was as good as an amateur there was on the circuit, but Stephen Hendry just made him look like, I don't know, just made him look so silly. This kid was just bouncing around the table. He had this arrogance, this confidence. And I remember watching him and just thinking that I've never seen anyone play snooker like this in my life. And I went home and I just said, I've seen the best player I've ever seen. To all my uncles and my dad, and they was like, nah, he ain't gonna be as good as Steve Davis. I said, you watch, this geezer is unbelievable. And 3 years on, he won the Rothmans, and then he just took over, didn't he?
Yeah, it's interesting. I was speaking to Stephen actually about how he coped with playing as an amateur, and he said that when he was playing in Scotland, he felt comfortable. But when he came down south as an amateur, he was out of his comfort zone and really did struggle, which really does surprise me, actually. How, as a kid, when you were playing, did you just play without a care in the world wherever you were? It's irrelevant, be it on the match table, playing in a pro-am or playing in the club. Were you always the same?
Yeah, well, I was playing a lot of the pro-am circuit was always a lot stronger from like Leeds down to London. Scotland, John Higgins would never venture down to play, so they had a smaller pool of players up there and probably not as many events, and the depth wasn't as strong. So, it's a bit like playing in like first division football and then putting you in the Premier League. The great players will adapt to it and go, okay, it's a bit faster, but I'll just adapt. And Hendry that had probably been the same for Hendry. He had all the talent in the world, but maybe the standard was a little bit higher and he wasn't used to it. But that's probably what he needed. And when you're a great player, that's what you need to make to push you on to higher levels.
So what's it like, Ronnie? Listen, we're all sports fans, be it football, snooker, whatever, and we all watch the telly as a kid and we see our idols, but very few of us actually go on to compete with our idols at the highest level. Of course, you've done that. So let's go back to Stephen Hendry. What was it like when you played him? You picked a few matches out. So one of them you picked out is the 93 UK final. You beat Davis along the way. I think it was 9-6 in the quarterfinal, that sort of. So what's it like as a young kid coming through? You're playing Davis, and then you're playing Hendry in the final. How do you mentally get around that? What was it like for you?
Before the UK Championships, I won the invitation tournament. So if you won this tournament, you got a wild card to the Masters. So I was on a bit of a good run, and I just think I just matured. I needed that first year just to mature a little bit. And then obviously, I beat McManus. I think that was in the first or second round of the UK Championships, which was a great scout. He was like number 4 or 5 in the world. And then I managed to beat Doherty, I think, at some point. And then I beat Davis. To beat Davis he was like my hero. So that was like a massive result, really. And then obviously, Hendry in the final was just a complete different ball game,
Are you subconsciously raising your game because you're playing your heroes and you want them to see how good you are?
No, I was just playing my game, really. I just wanted to play well. I just wanted to compete with them. I never went into the match thinking, I'm going to win this. I never go into matches thinking, I want to win this match. I go in there just thinking I want to compete, and if I can compete, then that's the beauty of the game. It's nice to win easy, and but to be involved in a really good match, that's the best feeling. You want your opponents to play well, you play well, and you're pushing each other, and you come off of it and you shake hands, whether you win or lose, and say, you know what, we both give each other a good going through today, and that's all you really want when you're playing a game.
One of your early meetings with Jimmy White was in Blackpool. You beat him 5-1. What do you remember from that match?
I remember just sort of, I was on a bit of a roll, I won so many matches. I think I was probably on about my 50-odd match by the time Jimmy came down. Jimmy obviously had like 2 or 3 months off, probably never even got his cue out of his case, and probably had like about 2 or 3 days practice before playing me. And I didn't expect to beat him because it's Jimmy White. I expect him to come down, and it was another level for me. I used to play in the amateurs and the pros that are they're pros, but they were more suited to the amateur level, really. So to play Jimmy, who was like a proven, world class player, I expected that maybe I'd probably lose that match. But I just think I played so many matches that they didn't even feel like matches to me. It was just like a practice match, So I just went out there and played. And I remember, I think I won 5-1, and I think it took me about 50 minutes to get the victory as well.
Okay, we're going to have a quick break. When we come back, more from Rocket Ronnie O'Sullivan. We'll be talking about the class of 92 and Ronnie's legacy. We'll see you right after this. And welcome back to part 2 of a brand new series of Snooker Vodcast with me, Andy Goldstein. My guest in today's show is Rocket Ronnie O'Sullivan, and we are talking about his main rivals. And Ronnie, when we look at 2 of your biggest rivals in snooker, I suppose it has to be, for obvious reasons, and the main 2 being that you all turned pro in the same year, 1992, has to be Mark Williams and John Higgins. What do you remember playing both of those players as an amateur?
Well, I knew Mark Williams. For me and Mark used to play each other quite a lot on the pro-am circuit. So, when we were 10, 11, 12, 13, we used to go to Hendry for the junior tournaments and that. So we knew of each other. But the first time I see John Higgins, he was 14. So, no one had heard of him. And the first I heard was that this young Scottish kid had nearly had a 147 in the home internationals. So that was kind of like the buzz going on. I didn't even know what John Higgins looked like. But after we heard that, it was like, you had to watch him play. I was watching him play, and I thought, oh, this kid looks like super, super good, And then and from that moment on, you knew John Higgins, was going to be a class player. So that was my first encounter with John Higgins. But yeah, the rivalry from that day really has been on, between the 3 of us.
I won't ask if you thought back then the 3 of you were going to dominate snooker like you have done, because of course the answer will be no. But did you get the feeling that you and the other 2, John and Mark, were a little bit maybe different from everyone else? The level of snooker you were producing was something that perhaps you hadn't seen from any other players. Did you get that feeling?
Yeah, definitely. There was a lot of good players around, but we were hungry. We had the desire. Do you know what I mean? We were like, we loved it. We wanted it. And for a lot of snooker players, it was just a bit of a lifestyle. They used to go around there and have a bit of a laugh and joke. But we took our business serious. So yeah, and I think it helped that the 3 of us come through together, because I think we all kind of motivated each other to try and do better. Because if one was doing well, it always spur the other one on to do well. So it was kind of like a healthy rivalry, really.
What do you admire about both players? What are their best qualities, would you say?
I think bottom line is that they got, both got the killer instinct. They both can pop the big balls under pressure, which you have to do if you want to win the big titles. I think John's obviously got more of an all-round complete game. He has a bit more of a power game about him. Mark, if there is one fault in his game, I'd say that he doesn't have that power game, has to roll a lot of balls in and doesn't like to get the balls open as much. And I think that if he could do that, he'd be an even much more harder player to beat. So there is a kind of weakness in Mark's game that there isn't in John's game. But then Mark has different ways of winning matches. If he's good at keeping it tight, he's good at making 40s and 50s and making it tough for you. So they both come with very strong assets to their game.
Ron, we're very lucky that on Eurosport we've got copious amounts of snooker, and whenever you and Mark, or you and John, or John and Mark meet, we make a big thing about it. We get very excited about it. Do you feel the same way, that when you meet either of those, it's a bigger match?
Yeah, of course. I mean, it's sort of like, we're playing each other for like 30 years now, So yeah, it's always nice to see like Nadal play Federer, Federer plays Djokovic. They're kind of, their ages and their careers and their statistics are so evenly matched that, none of us have got anything to prove. So, and the chances are that, it's nice to see greats play each other, I suppose. So, I get why it's exciting. So, yeah, it's good, yeah.
Another player you've got a healthy rivalry with is Mark Selby, who I think turned pro 7 years after you. You've had quite a lot of meetings in the UK, the Masters, obviously the World Championships. Can you remember the first time you saw him and what you thought of his ability on the table?
Yeah, I always thought Mark was a great match player. You know, I watched him play, and you know, you could tell he was going to be a good player. But I see a lot of his faults. I had the same faults as in my game as I think that he had in his game, and I knew how much of a struggle it was for me to try and play with them faults. You know, one day he was great, the next day he was terrible, and that like up and down inconsistency can mentally get to you. So although I knew he was a fantastic player, I never expected him be able to go on and be as successful as he was. You know, at one stage I said I didn't think he'd ever win the world title, because to win the world title you really can't afford to have a bad session. But what Mark's been able to do is he's able to play bad, but he's also able to make the other player play bad. I was never able to do that. If I play bad, you know, balls are all there ready in the open, and the opponent would just hoover them up. Whereas when Mark was playing bad, you know, there'd be balls on cushions, and you'd think like, you know, where do I go from here? So he was always able to play himself and stay in the matches. So he found a way to kind of still be able to win when you're playing bad. So you know, and I never thought snooker could be played like that. I mean, you know, I know Mark doesn't like playing that, but if you sometimes have to do that to get a result and to get you into the next round, you've got to do what you've got to do. And no one in the history of the game has been better at that than Mark Selby. So, you know, you have to take your hat off to him, really.
You've had some great matches. 2010 final of the Masters, Selby won that 10-9. You met again 4 years later. You won that. It was one of your best performances. I think it was 10-4. And in 2014, you met in the final of the World Championships as well. Is there one particular match you've played against him and you thought, do you know what, now we've got a rivalry between us?
I think maybe after the Masters final in 2010, I'm not sure, did I win that one?
No, he won that 10-9.
Yeah, because I think I won the one the year previous before. I think I beat him in 2009. So yeah, I mean, I think, you know, when Mark was coming through, it was me who he was playing in a lot of finals. And yeah, I think by then, you know, we had a lot of close matches, and, you know, you just knew then that he was going to be, you know, it was a tough match to play. So yeah, no, yeah, he's just an all-round good professional, you know.
Do you think out of the players that are still playing today, that Judd is probably the one player in the game that lives up to expectation from the fans when they want to see an entertainer? They want to see the next Higgins, the next White, the next O'Sullivan.
Yeah, 100%. Yeah, without a doubt, he plays like a different game. He plays a brilliant game. He's a power play. He plays shots that no one else can play. He's got the killer instinct. He's hungry. He's proven after winning the World Championships that we all knew it wasn't a fluke, but, you know, there was still people out there saying, oh, you know, can he back it up? He's come this season. He's already won 6 ranking events, which is more than any player's ever had to do. Yeah, I know there's more ranking events now than ever, but still to win 6 is a fantastic achievement. So, you know, for me, you know, he's probably he's a complete player now. You know, and he's just going to get stronger and stronger. And yeah, I just think, you know, he's it's like when Hendry come along, you know, he was pretty much head and shoulders above everybody else. And I think that Judd is head and shoulders above everybody else at the moment.
It's weird, isn't it? Because Hendry, of course, won his world title when he was 21, and Judd won his first one when he was 30. But you still feel as though Judd could win another 4 or 5.
Oh, easy. Yeah, I mean, like Judd in 10 years, Judd will have the problem that I'm having there. There'll be a few young ones come up behind him, and he'll have a few battle scars, and, you know, they'll keep pushing up, and eventually, mentally, you kind of like, you know, if you're not mentally up for it, or you're just a little bit off, you start to lose matches, you know. So he's got the next 7 to 10 years to dominate, really. And I just think it's a lot harder for Judd coming through than it was when Hendry came through, because Hendry didn't really, apart from Davis, you know, Jimmy on his day, he didn't really have a lot to, you know, there wasn't anyone there that was going to frighten him, if you know what I mean. Whereas with Judd, when he come along, you still had Hendry, you've got Higgins, you had Williams, you got me, you had Ding. You know, you know, it was hard to sort of come in and dominate from that point on. But I think, you know, I think players have developed a little bit more slowly now. You know, you learn your trade, and you know, every player gets 10 years, whether that's 20 to 30 or 30 to 40. Judd started at 30, and I think he'll go on to 40, playing some fantastic snooker.
Who else can compete with Judd then at the moment when they're playing to the best of their ability, and Judd is as well? Who can give him a really close game?
No one. Just there's no one out there.
Not even yourself. You don't put yourself in that category, right?
Listen, you can go out there. You know, listen. If we played 5 times, if I won once, twice, possible. But you know, he's just going to get stronger and stronger. And I think the best thing that's happened to Judd is his brother. You know, I think if he wouldn't have had his brother there, maybe Judd wouldn't have made the changes that he's made. But I just think he'll owe a lot to his brother, and I think his brother has been, you know, the best thing that's happened to Judd. You know, so glad his brother came along now, not 10 years ago.
Yeah, I bet you are. Listen, before you go, I really enjoyed today's chat. We've been talking about rivals, and snooker's had loads of them, from Davis and Higgins to Davis and White and Hendry and White, and of course we've spoken about yours. And I'll let you include your own rivalry if it is the answer. But what's been your favourite rivalry through the years in snooker?
I'd probably have to say Higgins. Higgins has kept me on my toes more than anybody. Yeah, we've had some great battles. You know, I've took some really bad beatings off of John. You know, and they've hurt. But like I said, when you're younger, them ones that hurt, they make you stronger. If I was taking them beatings now, I'd probably go, I'd run a mile, mate. I'd be like, you know, I'm not up for this. But when you're younger, you've got no fear. You know, you just want to improve. You know, you're single. You've got nothing else going on in your life, and it's all part of, you know, making you a better player. But as you get older, you don't want to be taking them beatings, you know. So that, you know, you don't learn so much when you're older. So yeah, I think me and John have had some fantastic matches.
Well, listen, we've had a fantastic half hour with you. Thanks so much for your time. It's always a pleasure seeing you.
Thanks, Andy.
And we'll see you soon. And make sure we see you again soon. There's loads of these podcasts on Eurosport, and you can download them as a podcast on iTunes as well. So make sure you catch up with all of them. In the meantime, thanks for watching. For myself and Ronnie, bye for now, and we'll see you in a bit.
Adios.